Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a topic that, honestly, you probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes in, let alone a lifetime. Imagine this, you're standing in a grand echoing hall, the air thick with the scent of roasted meats and unwashed bodies, the clatter of silver on pewter a constant backdrop to the drone of courtly chatter, sunlight, fractured by stained glass windows, paints kaleidoscopic patterns on the stone floor, illuminating dust motes dancing in the perpetual twilight. Around you, nobles in their silken finery preen and whisper, their jewels catching the light like frozen stars. And there you are, feeling the weight of ill-fitting motley. The bells on your cap jangling with every nervous twitch. You're trying to remember the latest riddle, the one that might just save your skin tonight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, tell me, where are you tuning in from, and what time is it for you? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself at the very precipice of a decision, one that, in retrospect, you'll realize was less a choice and more a desperate leap into the unknown. The village you knew, the fields you tilled, the monotonous rhythm of your predictable life, it had all become a stifling blanket. Maybe a blight took your crops, a raiding party burned your home, or perhaps, like many, you simply possessed an insatiable hunger for something more, something beyond the endless cycle of sowing and reaping. You'd heard whispers, of course, tales carried on the wind by passing merchants and wandering minstrels, of the grand courts where laughter flowed as freely as wine, and where even a commoner, if clever enough, could find a place. The prospect of such a life, free from the backbreaking labor and the constant threat of starvation, shimmered like a mirage in your mind, too enticing to resist. So, you packed your meager belongings, perhaps a worn lute, a tattered book of riddles, or simply the quick wit you knew was your only true asset, and set off, your heart a strange mix of apprehension and audacious hope. The journey to the nearest court was, itself, a brutal initiation. You trek through muddy roads, sleeping under the indifferent gaze of the stars, your stomach often empty, your feet aching. You encounter brigands, desperate peasants, and the occasional arrogant knight, learning quickly that the world outside your village was far less forgiving. This period is a crucible, burning away any remaining naivete, replacing it with a hardened resolve and a keen observational eye, skills you'll soon discover are essential for survival in the very place you're headed. You learn to read faces, to gauge moods, to anticipate danger before it strikes. You also begin to hone your craft, perhaps practicing your juggling with stones, refining your mimicry of local dialects, or simply perfecting the art of the quick, disarming retort to avoid trouble. This isn't formal training, it's the University of Hard Knocks, and your tuition is paid in hunger, exhaustion, and the occasional close call. Upon finally reaching the sprawling walls of a fortified city, you're immediately struck by the sheer scale of it all. The bustling markets, the towering cathedrals, the imposing castle looming over everything like a stone behemoth. It's a world away from anything you've ever known. The air vibrates with 1,000 different sounds, the hawker's cries, the clang of the blacksmith's hammer, the distant murmur of the crowd. You feel like a tiny fish dropped into a vast, churning ocean, overwhelmed yet undeniably drawn in. Your objective is the castle, but gaining entry is another hurdle entirely. You can't just waltz in. You might spend days, even weeks, loitering near the gates, trying to catch the eye of a passing guard or a minor noble. You tell jokes to the street vendors, perhaps perform a small juggling act for a few copper coins, subtly trying to make a name for yourself. However small, this is where your performance truly begins. Not on a grand stage, but on the grimy cobblestones, hoping someone, anyone, will notice your particular brand of madness. Eventually, through sheer persistence or a stroke of luck, you catch the ear of a court official, perhaps a scullery maid who laughs at your antics, or a bored guard who sees a potential distraction for his monotonous shift. You are granted an audience, a terrifying, exhilarating moment where your entire future hangs in the balance. You stand before the master of ceremonies, perhaps even a minor lord, your heart hammering against your ribs. This isn't a friendly audition. It's a brutal assessment. They are looking for something unique, something captivating, something that will amuse their notoriously fickle monarch. You trot out your best material, the cleverest riddles, the most outlandish impressions, the most acrobatic tumbles. You are keenly aware that one wrong word, one clumsy movement, could send you back to the miserable life you just escaped. You sweat, you stammer, but you push through, driven by the desperation born of your past hardships. If you are fortunate enough to impress them, the training truly begins, and it's far from the whimsical image of jesters you might have held. Forget carefree days of laughter. You are now a student, and your teachers are the harsh realities of court life. You might be apprenticed to an older, more established jester, if one exists, or perhaps placed under the tutelage of a sharp-witted courtier who understands the delicate balance of humor and politics. You learn court etiquette, a labyrinthine maze of bows, curtsies, and intricate rules of address. You are taught the subtle art of observation, who is feuding with whom, who holds true power, whose favor is worth currying. You memorize the names and lineages of countless nobles, the intricate web of alliances and rivalries that define the court. This historical fact, often overlooked, is that jesters were not just entertainers. They were often shrewd observers and informal advisors. Their humor availed for sharper insights. They had to know everyone and everything. Your physical training is equally rigorous. You practice juggling with increasingly complex objects, learn to tumble without breaking your neck, and master various musical instruments, the lute, the flute, the drum, to accompany your performances. You might even be expected to learn basic acrobatics or even swordplay, not for combat, but for comedic duels or theatrical displays. The expectation is that you will be a master of many trades, a one-person entertainment troupe capable of performing at a moment's notice. You are constantly rehearsing, constantly honing your craft, because in this world, stagnation means obsolescence. You are pushed to your physical and mental limits, often with little rest or proper nourishment, because your value is directly tied to your ability to consistently amuse. And then there's the intellectual training, arguably the most crucial. You are taught how to craft jokes that are witty without being offensive, how to deliver insults that sting but don't wound fatally, and how to use double entendres that amuse the monarch while sailing over the heads of less astute courtiers. You learn about current events, local gossip, and the history of the realm, all fodder for your comedic routines. This often includes being privy to sensitive information, a unique detail that highlights the jester's unusual position. While others might be executed for such knowledge, your role allows you to vocalize it, albeit wrapped in satire. It's a delicate dance, a tightrope walk between being genuinely funny and inadvertently incurring the wrath of someone powerful. The line between humor and treason is razor thin in a medieval court. You're constantly walking it. One academic debate that still rages among historians is the true extent of a jester's influence. Were they merely glorified clowns? Or did they genuinely wield soft power, subtly shaping royal opinion through their clever observations and pointed jokes? You certainly feel the potential for both. You see the monarch's reactions, the way their mood shifts with your words, and you quickly learn which topics are safe to touch upon and which are best avoided. You might find yourself testing the waters, subtly introducing an idea through humor that would be met with outrage if presented directly by a courtier. This ability to speak truth, even if veiled, is your most dangerous and valuable asset. You learn to read the room, to sense the shifts in power dynamics, to understand the subtle cues that indicate whether your performance is delighting or dangerously offending. This constant calibration of your act becomes second nature. The odds of truly succeeding, of becoming a jester of renown, are incredibly slim. Many who aspire to the role fail to make it past the initial stages. sent back to their villages, or relegated to lowly positions within the castle, their dreams of fame shattered. Others might achieve a fleeting moment of glory, only to fall out of favor as quickly as they rose, cast aside for a newer, funnier face. You see this happen to others, a constant reminder of your own precarious position. The court is a brutal meritocracy, and your talent is your only currency. The pressure is immense, a constant, gnawing anxiety that you must be on at all times, ready with a quip, a song, or a silly dance, lest your value diminish. You are always performing, even when you're not on stage, because your very existence is an act. You realize, with a chilling clarity, that this life, though seemingly glamorous from a distance, is a relentless, exhausting battle for survival. You've escaped one form of misery only to land in another, albeit one with slightly shinier bells. You've made it. You've survived the brutal gauntlet of training, the relentless auditions, and the cutthroat competition. Now, you stand within the hallowed, yet profoundly unsettling, confines of the royal court as a newly appointed jester. The bells on your cap no longer feel like a foreign weight. They are an extension of yourself, a constant reminder of your role. You might wear the vibrant, mismatched motley, or perhaps something more subdued, depending on the monarch's particular taste. Some jesters were known for their flamboyant costumes, others for a more understated, intellectual wit. Regardless, you are now a figure of unique visibility. An anomaly in a world of rigid hierarchy, you are the only one, perhaps besides the monarch themselves, who can move relatively freely between the various social strata of the court, from the lowest scullery maid to the highest-ranking duke. This fluid access, while seemingly a privilege, also makes you a target, a repository of whispers and secrets that others might seek to exploit. The golden cage is a potent metaphor for your new existence. On the one hand, you are granted unprecedented access to power, luxury, and a level of comfort that would have been unimaginable in your previous life. You eat well, sleep in a proper bed, and are usually safe from the immediate threats of the outside world. You witness history unfolding before your very eyes, a front-row seat to the intrigues, triumphs, and tragedies of a kingdom. You might even find yourself in the monarch's personal chambers, offering a jest or a song to ease their anxieties, a truly intimate position that few others could ever hope to attain. You are seen, heard, and often beloved. However, the bars of this cage are forged from expectation, fear, and the monarch's unpredictable whims. Your existence is entirely dependent on your ability to entertain, and the definition of entertaining can shift with the wind. One day, a biting satire on the latest tax increase might be met with uproarious laughter. The next, the same joke could land you in the dungeon, or worse. You live in a state of perpetual vigilance, constantly assessing the monarch's mood, the political climate, and the sensitivities of those around you. Your life, your livelihood, your very safety hinges on your performance, and there are no off days. You cannot simply not be funny today. You are always on, always. You observe the other courtiers, the nobles with their ancient lineages and vast estates, the ambitious ministers vying for power, the weary servants toiling in the shadows. They live by a strict code of conduct, their lives dictated by protocol and precedent. You, however, are an outsider, a paradox. You are allowed to break rules, to speak truths that others dare not utter, to mock the powerful to their faces. But this freedom is a tightly controlled illusion. Your mockery must be tempered with respect, your truths with tact. You are a pressure valve for the court, a safe outlet for discontent. But if that pressure valve ever explodes, you are the first to be discarded. The food you eat is rich, a stark contrast to the meager meals of your past. You savor the roasted meats, the spiced wines, the sweet pastries. But even as you eat, you're aware that this feast is a privilege, not a right. You might find yourself sharing a meal with the monarch one day, and eating scraps with the stable hands the next. A constant reminder of your precarious social standing. You possess no land, no title, no inherited wealth. Your only asset is your wit, and wits can dull, or worse, offend. The opulence of your surroundings is breathtaking. Tapestries depicting mythical beasts and heroic battles adorn the walls. Velvet drapes obscure massive windows, and the air is often scented with expensive perfumes and burning incense. You walk on polished stone floors, sleep on feather beds, and wear clothes finer than anything you ever dreamed of owning? Yet, these luxuries are merely the trappings of your servitude. They are the ornaments on your cage, not keys to its lock. You are comfortable, yes, but never truly free. One common historical misconception is that jesters were always fools in the literal sense, lacking intelligence. In reality, they were often highly intelligent, articulate individuals with a keen understanding of human nature and court politics. You embody this truth. You are no dolt. Your mind is a finely tuned instrument, constantly processing information, weighing risks, and crafting responses. You learn to listen more than you speak, to observe every subtle gesture, every nuanced inflection. You become a master of nonverbal communication, understanding what is truly meant, even when the words say something else entirely. This sharp intellect is your primary tool for survival. You navigate the intricate social web of the court with the agility of a spider. You learn who to flatter, who to avoid, and who to subtly undermine. You become adept at reading faces, discerning genuine amusement from forced laughter, true friendship from calculating smiles. You realize that everyone in court, from the highest noble to the lowliest servant, is playing a game, and your survival depends on understanding the rules, even if you are allowed to bend them slightly. You might find yourself performing for visiting dignitaries, your wit serving as a diplomatic tool, easing tensions, or subtly conveying messages that couldn't be spoken directly. This makes you, at times, an unwitting pawn in larger political games. Your physical comfort is a stark contrast to the mental burden you carry. You might have a comfortable room, perhaps even servants to attend to your basic needs. But the constant pressure to perform, to be funny on demand, to walk the fine line between amusement and offense, is utterly exhausting. You wake up each morning with the weight of expectation on your shoulders, and you often fall asleep at night replaying the day's performances, analyzing every joke, every reaction, every potential misstep. The fear of failure, of displeasing the monarch, is a constant companion, a low hum beneath the surface of your conscious thoughts. Sometimes, you encounter other jesters from different courts, brought in for special occasions or to entertain visiting royalty. These encounters are fascinating, a chance to exchange notes on performance styles, comedic techniques, and the peculiar eccentricities of various monarchs. You might learn a new trick, a fresh riddle, or a different approach to a difficult situation. But even these interactions are tinged with rivalry. After all, you are all vying for attention, for the fleeting favor of those in power. There's a subtle competition, a silent assessment of who is truly the funniest, the cleverest, the most indispensable. One of the more unique, and often unsettling, aspects of your role is your potential to be a royal confidant. The monarch, burdened by the weight of their crown, might find solace in your irreverent honesty. While their advisors tell them what they want to hear, you, the jester, are often the only one who can speak unvarnished truth, albeit sugar-coated with humor. You might find yourself listening to their deepest anxieties, their secret fears, their frustrations with their own court. This makes you privy to incredibly sensitive information, placing an even greater burden on your shoulders. You must learn to carry these secrets, never betraying the monarch's trust, for such a betrayal would surely mean your end. The historians still debate whether jesters were truly trusted advisors, or simply a form of psychological release for stressed monarchs. but you know that in those quiet moments, the lines often blurred. You occasionally reflect on the life you left behind, the simplicity and predictability that now seem like a distant dream. You miss the familiar faces, the rhythm of the seasons, the freedom from constant scrutiny. But you also know there's no going back. You are irrevocably changed by this life, shaped by its demands and its dangers. You are no longer the naive individual who set out on that arduous journey. You are a survivor, a performer, a master of wit and observation, forever bound by the golden cage you've built around yourself. You wonder, sometimes, if the price of admission to this life was worth the cost of your soul's peace. The answer is never clear. Now that you're firmly ensconced in the golden cage, you discover that your primary tool for survival, your very raison d'etre, is a double-edged sword, your wit. It is your shield, deflecting the barbs of jealous courtiers and the wrath of a monarch. It is your weapon, subtly delivering truths that others dare not speak. And it is your currency, earning you your daily bread and the fleeting favor of the powerful. You learn to wield this sword with the precision of a master craftsman, understanding that every joke, every quip, every turn of phrase has the potential to elevate you or to sever your career, and perhaps your head. Your days are a constant performance, a relentless cycle of observation, improvisation, and delivery. You are always on, even when you're simply walking through the halls. You listen to the murmurs of the court, picking up snippets of gossip, political intrigue, and personal slights. These become the raw material for your comedy. You might transform a minister's pompous pronouncements into a hilarious imitation, or turn a whispered scandal into a clever riddle that only the initiated understand. The trick is to be topical, relevant, and above all, funny, without being overtly treasonous. You're like a courtly comedian, constantly writing and rewriting your set based on the ever-changing audience. The monarch is your primary audience, and their mood is your barometer. You learn to read their face like an open book, discerning the subtle flickers of amusement, boredom, or, God forbid, anger. A slight frown, a twitch of an eyebrow, a hand resting on a dagger hilt. These are signals you must instantly interpret and react to. If your joke falls flat, you must immediately pivot, try a different tack, or perhaps launch into a series of frantic tumbles to distract from the silence. The pressure is immense, a constant, gnawing anxiety that you must always hit the mark. It's like being a tightrope walker, with the king's unpredictable mood as the swaying wire beneath your feet. You discover the power of the layered joke. On the surface, it's a simple jest, perhaps about a lazy stable boy or a clumsy knight. But beneath, there's a subtle commentary on the court's inefficiencies, or a veiled jab at a specific noble. This allows you to speak uncomfortable truths in a palatable form. The common folk might simply laugh at the surface humor, while the more astute courtiers and the monarch themselves grasp the deeper meaning. This intellectual subtlety is your hallmark, demonstrating that you are far more than a mere buffoon. You remember that kind of cream made from crocodile dung that some people used for their skin in ancient times? Well, your jokes are like that. Sometimes the ingredients are a bit unexpected, but the effect, you hope, is transformative. But this cleverness comes with immense risk. You're always teetering on the edge. You might tell a joke about a minister's financial dealings, thinking it's harmless, only to discover later that the minister has been secretly embezzling funds. Your humor, intended as lighthearted fun, suddenly becomes a dangerous revelation. Or you might unintentionally insult a powerful noble who, unlike the monarch, lacks a sense of humor and has a long memory. These missteps can lead to anything from a stern reprimand to being banished from court, or even, but in the darkest of times, to a visit from the executioner. You often lie awake at night, replaying your jokes, wondering if you pushed too far, if you offended the wrong person, you One particularly memorable incident comes to mind. You had crafted a series of rhymes mocking the fashion choices of a particularly vain duke, his oversized feathered hat, his garish silks. The monarch roared with laughter, enjoying the duke's discomfort. But later that evening, you found yourself cornered in a dimly lit corridor by the duke's hulking guards. No words were exchanged, but their menacing glares and the slow, deliberate placement of their hands on their sword hilts conveyed a chilling message. You learned then that the monarch's amusement did not always guarantee your safety from the wrath of those you mocked. Your jokes could earn you powerful friends, but they could also create dangerous enemies. You also become adept at using humor as a form of damage control. If the monarch is in a foul mood, perhaps after a failed military campaign or a diplomatic blunder, you are expected to lighten the atmosphere. You might perform a series of slapstick routines, tell tales of foolish heroes, or simply engage in witty banter to divert their attention from their troubles. Your role, at times, is to be a human emotional sponge, absorbing the court's anxieties and transforming them into laughter. It's an exhausting task, requiring immense emotional intelligence and boundless energy. There's a subtle art to knowing when to push and when to retreat. Sometimes, a joke that pushes the boundaries of propriety can actually strengthen your bond with the monarch, showing them your courage and your unique ability to speak freely. But other times, that same joke could be perceived as disrespectful, even insolent. This academic debate among historians about the licensed fool status, whether jesters truly had a special dispensation to say anything, or if it was merely a precarious privilege, is something you live every day. You know that license is never absolute, always conditional on the monarch's humor and the political climate. It's a tightrope walk over a pit of vipers. You often observe the reaction of the other courtiers to your jokes. Some laugh genuinely. Others feign amusement, their eyes cold and calculating. Some actively try to egg you on, hoping you'll say something truly inflammatory that will get you into trouble. You learn to discern the true friends from the false allies, and to avoid the manipulators who seek to use your wit for their own nefarious purposes. Your social circle is small, often limited to other low-ranking staff who understand the precariousness of your existence. You rarely form deep bonds with the nobles. They are your audience, your employers, but rarely your equals or your friends. The danger isn't always overt. Sometimes, the most perilous situation arises when your humor is too effective, when it exposes a truth that someone powerful wants to keep hidden. You might inadvertently reveal a corrupt official, or highlight a flaw in the monarch's grand strategy. While the monarch might initially be amused, the target of your wit will almost certainly seek retribution. You learn to be hyper-aware of these hidden currents, to anticipate the blowback from your jokes. It's not enough to be funny. You must also be politically savvy. You learn to weave your observations into your narrative, creating a continuous comedic commentary on court life. You might begin a story about a talking parrot in the morning, only to bring it back in the evening with a punchline that cleverly references a newly announced policy. This continuity, this weaving of humor into the fabric of daily life, makes you an integral part of the court's rhythm, even as it constantly reminds you of your role as an entertainer. Always on display. The subtle callbacks, like remembering the crocodile dung sunscreen, serve to link moments together, showing a sophisticated understanding of narrative and memory, a trait not often attributed to the fool. Ultimately, you are a master of survival, using your wit as a finely honed instrument to navigate a world teeming with danger and intrigue. Each day is a test, each joke a gamble. The laughter you elicit is your lifeline, but the silence that follows a failed jest can be deafening, a chilling harbinger of what might come next. You live by your wits, and you constantly wonder how long those wits will be sharp enough to keep you alive. The laughter you conjure, the applause you earn, the fleeting smile on the monarch's face, these are moments of triumph. Certainly. But beneath the motley, behind the painted grin, you carry a profound and gnawing truth: you are profoundly alone. In a court teeming with people, You are an island, perpetually performing yet never truly belonging. You are the eternal outsider, an observer of the human comedy, but rarely a participant in its deeper, more meaningful dramas. You watch the nobles form their alliances, their friendships forged in shared lineage, common enemies, and the pursuit of power. You see the gentle flirtations, the passionate romances, the quiet comforts of married life among the courtiers. You witness the familial bonds, the hushed conversations between parents and children, the fierce loyalty of siblings. These are relationships built on shared history, mutual understanding, and genuine affection, things you, the jester, are largely excluded from. Your purpose is to entertain, to distract, to amuse, but rarely to truly connect on a human level. When you perform, the court looks at you, but they don't see you. They see the jester, the fool, the source of their amusement. They laugh at your jokes, not with you, in the way one laughs with a trusted friend. You are a spectacle, an object of entertainment, and that objectification creates an invisible, yet impenetrable, barrier between you and everyone else. You might elicit genuine smiles, even moments of shared levity, but these are transient, fading as quickly as the echo of your last jest. Even among the other servants, there's a subtle distance. While they might tolerate you, even appreciate your antics, you are still seen as different, special, and therefore separate. You don't share their grueling labor, their quiet resentments, or their clandestine hopes. Your life is singular, defined by your proximity to power, and that sets you apart even from those below you in the court's rigid hierarchy. They might envy your silks and your food, but they also understand the precariousness of your position, a golden leash that binds you tighter than their own chains. The monarch, your master, might offer moments of seeming intimacy. You might be called to their private chambers to soothe their anxieties, to offer a light-hearted diversion from the burdens of state. In these moments, they might confide in you, revealing their fears, their frustrations, their vulnerabilities. You become their psychological sounding board, a safe repository for their hidden thoughts. But even this is a professional relationship, not a personal one. You are there to serve a purpose, to absorb their emotional overflow. And once that purpose is served, you are dismissed. They don't ask about your day, your dreams, or your own fears. You are a tool, albeit a highly valued one, in their arsenal against the crushing weight of kingship. Think back to the initial journey to the court, when you were just a hopeful, solitary figure. You are still that figure, but now the solitude is intensified by the constant presence of others. You are never truly alone physically, surrounded by the bustling activity of the castle, but you are always alone emotionally. It's a cruel paradox. The more you perform for others, the deeper your sense of isolation grows. You spend your days crafting jokes about human folly, observing the intricate dance of social interaction. Yet you remain outside the circle, peering in. When you return to your chambers at night, the silence can be deafening. The bells on your cap lie still, and the laughter of the court fades into memory. You are left with your own thoughts, the weight of the day's performances, and the quiet realization that there is no one with whom to truly share the burdens of your unique existence. There is no one to debrief with, no one to truly understand the tightrope walk you navigate each day. You might practice new routines, read a book, or simply stare at the flickering candlelight. But the loneliness is a constant, subtle ache. This enforced solitude has a profound impact on your sense of self. Your identity becomes inextricably linked to your role. Who are you when you're not the jester? Do you even know anymore? The persona you project, the cheerful, irreverent, endlessly witty fool, becomes a mask that's increasingly difficult to remove. You find yourself adopting the jester's mannerisms even in private. The lines between your true self and your performance blurring with each passing day. You are a living embodiment of the court's amusement. And that can be a terrifying thing. to have your very essence defined by the whims of others. You crave genuine connection, a moment of unburdened conversation, a shared laugh that isn't part of an act. Sometimes, you might find fleeting moments of camaraderie with a stable hand who shares your dry wit, or a kitchen servant who appreciates your stories. These moments are precious, tiny islands of authentic human interaction in a sea of performative politeness. But they are rare, and they are never truly deep. You know your place, and they know theirs, and the unspoken rules of the court prevent any lasting intimacy. The absence of family is keenly felt. You may have left a family behind in your village, or perhaps you had none to begin with. Regardless, the court offers no substitute for the unconditional love and acceptance of kin. You witness other courtiers interacting with their families, and a pang of longing, a quiet ache, reverberates within you. You are forever an orphan in this grand, bustling, yet emotionally barren institution. This contrasts sharply with the popular image of jesters as happy-go-lucky figures. In reality, their lives were often marked by profound personal sacrifice. One common historical debate concerns the mental state of jesters. Were they genuinely happy individuals? Or did the isolation and constant pressure take a toll on their psychological well-being? You understand this debate intimately. There are days when the sheer joy of a successful performance, the roar of laughter, makes you feel invincible. But then there are the long, quiet nights, the self-doubt, the endless replaying of your jokes, searching for flaws, for potential offenses. The emotional roller coaster is exhausting, and there's no one to lean on when you feel yourself beginning to sway. You learn to find solace in your craft, in the intricate puzzles of humor, the challenge of making a monarch smile. You pour your energy into perfecting your juggling, mastering a new instrument, or crafting a particularly cunning riddle. These pursuits become your companions, your silent confidants. Your art is your escape, your way of processing the world around you, and your only true friend in a court where genuine friendship is a dangerous luxury. You might find yourself having long, internal dialogues, refining your jokes in your mind, your only audience yourself. Your loneliness is not just a personal affliction, it's a structural component of your role. To be truly effective, you must remain somewhat detached, an impartial observer who can comment on the follies of the court without becoming embroiled in its endless dramas. This detachment, while necessary for your survival, comes at a steep price: your own emotional well-being. You are the ultimate outsider, the man behind the curtain, pulling the strings of laughter but never truly joining the dance. With the lonely reality of your existence as a constant hum beneath your cap's bells, you now turn your attention to the most perilous dance of all, navigating the shifting sands of favor. Your survival in this gilded cage depends entirely on maintaining the fickle goodwill of the monarch and, by extension, avoiding the venomous ire of the powerful courtiers who surround them. This isn't a game, it's a daily, high-stakes negotiation for your very life. You quickly learn that the court is a microcosm of the kingdom itself, a complex ecosystem where alliances form and dissolve with bewildering speed. One day, a duke might be in high favor, his star ascendant. The next, a poorly chosen word or a perceived slight could send him tumbling into disgrace. You observe these fluctuations with the keen eye of a hawk, understanding that your proximity to these rising and falling tides of power means you are always at risk of being swept away. Your primary goal is to amuse the monarch. This sounds simple, but it is anything but. The monarch's mood is as unpredictable as the weather, influenced by everything from the success of a military campaign to a bad night's sleep. You must constantly calibrate your performance, sensing when to be boisterous and when to be subtle, when to tell a biting political joke and when to stick to harmless slapstick. A jest that delighted them yesterday could be met with a cold stare today, and that stare is a chilling warning. You become a master of reading facial expressions, body language, and even the subtle intonation of their voice, always searching for clues as to their current disposition. But amusing the monarch is only half the battle. You must also manage your relationships with the dozens, if not hundreds, of courtiers, ministers, and nobles who populate the court. These individuals are often intensely jealous of your unique access to the monarch, and many would jump at the chance to see you fall. You are a commoner with privileged access, a walking contradiction that offends their rigid sense of hierarchy. Your sharp wit, which delights the monarch, can also sting those it is directed at, creating powerful enemies who will seek subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, forms of retribution. You learn the art of the safe insult. This is a joke that pokes fun at a general human failing greed, vanity, foolishness without targeting a specific person directly, or if it does, it targets someone so universally disliked that even they can't truly object without appearing defensive. You might make a joke about the futility of chasing after fleeting glory, knowing full well that many courtiers spend their lives doing just that. It's a way of being clever and relevant without painting a target on your back. You remember the kind of cream made from crocodile dung that people used for skin in ancient times. Well, your safe insults are a bit like that, unpalatable to some, but effective for their intended purpose. If you know how to apply them, you also master the skill of flattery disguised as humor. You might praise the monarch's wisdom in a light-hearted riddle, or gently mock a rival kingdom's foolishness in a way that subtly highlights your own monarch's strategic brilliance. This is a delicate balance, as overt flattery from a jester would be seen as sycophantic and cheap. It must be woven into the fabric of your performance, a subtle thread in the tapestry of your wit. One common historical truth about jesters is that they were often used as scapegoats or lightning rods. If a controversial policy needed to be floated, or an unpopular truth needed to be spoken, the jester might be enlisted to joke about it first. If the reaction was negative, the monarch could simply dismiss it as the jester's foolishness, effectively disavowing the idea without taking responsibility. This places you in an incredibly vulnerable position. You are expendable, a convenient shield for royal misjudgment. You feel this weight every time you're asked to jest about a particularly sensitive topic. Knowing you are walking into a potential ambush, there's a constant, silent war being waged in the court for the monarch's ear. Ministers plot against each other, nobles vie for titles and lands, and everyone seeks to gain an advantage. You, with your unique access, are often a pawn in these games. A courtier might try to pump you for information, subtly asking about the monarch's mood or their private conversations. Another might try to feed you a joke designed to undermine a rival, hoping you'll innocently deliver it. You must become adept at detecting these manipulations, at deflecting these attempts without making powerful enemies. Your silence, at times, is as important as your words. You learn the value of discretion. What you hear in the monarch's private chambers, or what you observe during your strolls through the court, must remain locked behind your lips. Gossip is a powerful currency in court, and while you might use it in your jokes, you never betray confidences. A jester who leaks secrets is a jester who quickly finds himself without a position, or worse, your loyalty, even if it's born of self-preservation, must be absolute to the monarch. The fear of falling out of favor is a relentless shadow. You've seen it happen to others courtiers who once strutted with confidence, now banished, their lands confiscated, their names erased from polite conversation. You know that your position, despite its privileges, is built on the most ephemeral of foundations, the monarch's whim. A new jester, a cleverer joke, a simple moment of royal boredom, any of these could spell your end. This creates an intense, almost paralyzing pressure to always be entertaining, always relevant, always amusing. This precariousness leads to a rather peculiar, rarely discussed aspect of jester life, the art of the strategic silence. Sometimes, the best performance is no performance at all. Knowing when to simply stand quietly, to fade into the background, to offer no comment, can be a crucial survival tactic. It shows discretion, respect, and a keen understanding of the moment. You're not just a jester, you're also a master of knowing when to hold your tongue. Historians still debate the specific methods jesters use to maintain favor, but your lived experience offers a clear picture. It's a constant, proactive effort. You don't just wait to be called upon. You observe. You anticipate. You prepare. You try to subtly align your humor with the monarch's current agenda, without becoming a mere propagandist. You might subtly champion their favored causes, or gently mock their enemies, always ensuring that your loyalty is clear. Ultimately, your life at court is a perpetual balancing act. You walk a tightrope stretched taut between amusement and offense, between influence and irrelevance. Your survival depends on your ability to read the unspoken rules, to adapt to the shifting currents, and to ensure that the monarch always finds you more valuable and less dangerous than any potential rival. And every night, as you lie in your comfortable, yet confining, bed, you pray that tomorrow, the winds of favor will still blow in your direction. The paradox of your position deepens as you realize you are not merely a purveyor of laughter, but an unwitting, often unwilling, recipient of the court's most dangerous currency, its secrets and schemes. You are perpetually privy to whispers of power, echoes of fear, and the dark underbelly of a world where betrayal and intrigue are as commonplace as the rising sun. This makes you both uniquely informed and terrifyingly vulnerable. You see everything, because you are seemingly harmless, a mere fool. People often let down their guard around you. A whispered conversation between two ministers in a shadowed alcove, a subtle hand gesture exchanged between a lady-in-waiting and a visiting envoy, a heated argument overheard through a half-closed door. These fragments of information, seemingly innocuous to others, become vital pieces of a terrifying puzzle for you. You learn to piece them together, to infer motives, to anticipate outcomes. Your observational skills, honed during your arduous journey to court, are now razor-sharp. You witness the naked ambition of courtiers. You see the subtle poison of jealousy festering between siblings vying for an inheritance. You hear the hushed plans for political maneuvering, for undermining rivals, for arranging advantageous marriages that crush personal happiness. It's a constant, silent battle for influence. And you, the jester, are granted a front-row seat. You learn to recognize the telltale signs of treachery, the overly sweet smile, the sudden warmth from a previously cold heart, the overly keen interest in someone else's affairs. Sometimes, the secrets are laid bare directly to you. The monarch, burdened by the weight of their crown, might confide in you, their licensed fool, about a rebellion brewing in the provinces, a betrayal within their own council, or a looming threat from a neighboring kingdom. They seek your perspective, not for its strategic brilliance, but for its unvarnished, often irreverent, honesty. You are a safe sounding board, someone who can offer a dispassionate, even humorous, take on grim realities. This is a unique and terrifying burden. You carry the kingdom's secrets within your cap's bells, knowing that a single slip of the tongue could spell disaster. This makes your wit even more of a tightrope walk. You might want to make a joke about the incompetence of a certain general, knowing he's secretly plotting against the monarch, but to do so too overtly would reveal your knowledge, putting yourself in immense danger. Instead, you learn to craft jokes that are subtly subversive, that gently mock the idea of incompetence without directly naming the person, or that hint at discord without giving away specific details. It's a constant exercise in veiled communication, where humor becomes a code. The danger of this knowledge is profound. If you are seen as knowing too much, you become a liability, a powerful courtier, fearing that you might expose their machinations, could seek to silence you. This isn't always through brute force. It could be a subtle campaign of discrediting you, whispering rumors about your loyalty, or orchestrating situations that make you fall out of favor with the monarch. You remember the kind of cream made from crocodile dung that ancient people used? Well, some of the rumors spread in court are just as foul and just as effective at ruining reputations. You become adept at the art of feigned ignorance. When questioned about something you've overheard, you might feign confusion, offer a nonsensical riddle, or launch into a spontaneous song, anything to avoid revealing that you possess information that could be used against you, or against someone else. You learn to make your wit a smokescreen, diverting attention from your true knowledge. This is a constant mental chess game, where every move is calculated. One of the less explored aspects of court jesters is their potential as informal intelligence gatherers. While not spies in the traditional sense, their unique access and their perceived harmlessness allowed them to gather information that formal agents could not. You often find yourself in situations where vital information simply falls into your lap, without you even seeking it. A noble, frustrated after a meeting, might let slip a crucial detail while you're entertaining them. A servant, feeling comfortable with your presence, might grumble about a particular secret order from a high-ranking official. This is a powerful, yet dangerous, byproduct of your role. The moral dilemma this presents is constant. You witness injustice, corruption, and cruelty. You hear about plots that will harm innocent people, decisions that will impoverish the common folk, and betrayals that will shatter lives. Your natural inclination might be to speak out, to use your unique platform to expose these wrongs. But you know that doing so directly would be suicide. Your influence is subtle, not overt. You are a mirror reflecting the court's follies, not a hammer smashing them. There's a famous academic debate among historians about the true extent of truth-telling by jesters. Was it merely an illusion of freedom, or did they genuinely act as moral compasses? You know the answer is complex. You can speak truths, but only within very specific, carefully managed parameters. You can highlight folly, but not directly accuse. You can lampoon corruption, but not name the corrupt. It's a game of innuendo and metaphor, where the message is only clear to those who are willing to see it. The fear of being caught in the crossfire of court intrigue is a palpable presence. You are not a combatant in these power struggles, but an accidental bystander who knows too much. If two powerful factions clash, and you are seen as having any loyalty to one over the other, you could be crushed in the ensuing fallout. Your survival depends on your ability to remain politically neutral, a difficult feat when everyone around you is deeply entrenched in their own agendas. Sometimes, you witness genuine sorrow and fear among the courtiers themselves, victims of the very system they serve. A young noble, forced into an unwanted marriage. A minister, genuinely afraid for his life after displeasing the monarch. These moments pierce through your jester persona, reminding you of the human cost of power. You might offer a quiet word of comfort, a gentle distraction, or a shared knowing glance, recognizing their suffering, even if you cannot alleviate it. Your life is a constant tightrope walk over a pit of vipers, where the vipers are not just external enemies, but the very people you live among. The whispers of power become the chains that bind you, and the echoes of fear are the soundtrack to your days. You are a privileged prisoner, a knowing pawn, forever navigating the treacherous currents of a court where secrets are currency and betrayal is an art form. And every day, you just try to survive without becoming another forgotten secret. Having survived the treacherous currents of court intrigue, you now face perhaps your greatest moral and existential challenge, the burden of truth in a tyrant's court. Your unique position, that of the licensed fool, offers a dangerous and unprecedented opportunity to influence your ruler, to speak truths that would send any other courtier to the executioner's block. But it is a tightrope walk over a chasm, where one wrong step can lead to utter ruin. You are acutely aware that the monarch lives in an echo chamber, surrounded by sycophants and flatterers who tell them only what they want to hear. Their advisors, however well-intentioned, often temper their counsel with caution, fearful of displeasing the hand that feeds them. You, the jester, are different. You possess a unique freedom, a comedic shield that allows you to deliver uncomfortable truths veiled in humor. This is your greatest power and your most perilous responsibility. You begin to carefully test the boundaries. Perhaps the monarch is embarking on a foolish war, one you've heard whispers about from reliable sources within the castle walls. You can't directly advise against it. That's the role of the generals and ministers. But you can craft a series of jokes about misguided campaigns, about overconfident leaders who ignore wise counsel, or about the disproportionate cost of glory versus the suffering of the common folk. The goal isn't to mock the monarch directly, but to plant a seed of doubt, to offer a different perspective through the lens of humor. This subtle manipulation of perception is an art form. You learn to speak in parables, to tell stories with thinly veiled analogies, to use satire that cuts deep without drawing blood. You observe the monarch's reactions, looking for any flicker of recognition, any sign that your words have resonated. Sometimes, you see it a thoughtful frown, a moment of silence, a later shift in conversation that suggests your message, however veiled, has been received. These are your triumphs, small victories in a court where genuine influence is rare. But the line between speaking truth and inciting royal wrath is incredibly fine. A monarch might tolerate, even enjoy, humor that pokes fun at their advisors or the general state of affairs. But if your jokes are perceived as a direct challenge to their authority, their wisdom, or their decisions, the laughter can turn to ice in an instant. You've seen the look in their eyes, that chilling shift from amusement to cold fury, and it's a terrifying sight. You remember the kind of cream made from crocodile dung that people used for skin in ancient times? Well, some truths are just as bitter to swallow, no matter how you try to coat them. The moral burden weighs heavily. You witness the suffering of the common people, the injustices perpetrated by corrupt officials, the arbitrary cruelties of power. You have the unique ability to bring these issues to the monarch's attention, to prick their conscience. But doing so means risking everything. There are moments when you feel a profound sense of responsibility, a burning desire to use your voice for good, even if it means putting your own life on the line. But self-preservation is a powerful instinct, and the fear of losing your privileged, albeit perilous, existence is constant. One such incident comes to mind with vivid clarity. The royal tax collector, a notoriously cruel and greedy man, had levied an exorbitant new tax on the impoverished villagers, leaving many on the brink of starvation. You had heard the desperate tales from the kitchen staff, from the stable hands, from those who still had family outside the castle walls. During a feast, with the tax collector present, you launched into a long, rambling story about a mythical beast that devoured all the grain in a kingdom, leaving its people with only dust. You described the beast's insatiable hunger, its bloated belly, and the desperate cries of the villagers. The monarch laughed heartily, along with many courtiers who disliked the tax collector. The tax collector, however, looked furious. The next day, you heard that the monarch had ordered a review of the new tax, and within a week, it was partially rescinded. A small victory, but one that left you feeling profoundly exposed. Historians often debate whether jesters were truly allowed to criticize the monarch, or if any such criticism was purely accidental or misinterpreted. Your experience tells you it's a deliberate, calculated risk. You don't stumble into truth-telling, you strategically deploy it, choosing your moments with exquisite care, like a master chess player planning several moves ahead. The challenge isn't just speaking the truth, but speaking it in a way that the monarch can hear it without feeling personally attacked. You also face the moral quandary of remaining neutral in court factions. While you might see the clear villainy of one minister or the genuine integrity of another, your role requires you to maintain a facade of impartiality. Your jokes might subtly favor one side over another, but you can never openly endorse or condemn. This often means biting your tongue, suppressing your personal opinions, and acting the fool even when you feel the deepest conviction. The temptation to abuse your unique privilege is always present. You could use your humor to subtly undermine rivals, to spread disinformation, or to curry personal favor beyond what is earned. But you know that such overt manipulation would quickly expose your true intentions, shattering the delicate trust that allows you to speak any truth at all. Your power lies in its subtlety, its perceived innocence. Once you become a direct player in the political game, you lose your unique advantage. The emotional toll of this constant tightrope walk is immense. You are forever caught between your desire to amuse and your drive to inform, between self-preservation and a quiet sense of duty. You carry the weight of untold truths, the burden of observations you cannot voice, and the constant fear that your carefully crafted humor will one day misfire. Every laugh from the monarch is a momentary reprieve, a validation that you have navigated the treacherous waters for another day. But the knowledge of the ever-present danger, the potential for sudden and complete ruin, never truly leaves you. You are a conduit for uncomfortable truths, a living, breathing commentary on the state of the kingdom, all wrapped in a motley cloak and the jingle of bells. It is a lonely, terrifying, and profoundly significant role. And as you lay your head down each night, you wonder what truths you will be forced to confront and to deliver in the dangerous theater of tomorrow. As the years turn into a relentless procession of feasts, intrigues, and performances, you begin to feel the subtle, yet undeniable, shift in the court's dynamics and within yourself. The vibrant energy that once propelled your every jest starts to wane, and you realize you are entering a new, somber phase of your existence when the laughter dies. Decline and despair often follow. Your value, once paramount, slowly diminishes, and you face the grim reality of your expendability. You notice the monarch's eyes lingering less on you, and more on the younger, fresher faces that periodically arrive at court. Perhaps a traveling minstrel with a new set of songs, a clever acrobat with a novel routine, or even a foreign jester brought in during a diplomatic visit. The novelty of your humor, once so intoxicating, begins to fade. What was once brilliant now feels merely familiar. This is the natural, cruel progression of entertainment. The audience always craves something new, something different. Your body, too, starts to betray you. The agile tumbles become more labored. The juggling acts less precise. Your memory, once a vast repository of jokes and riddles, occasionally falters, leaving you scrambling for a punchline or a forgotten verse. The late nights of performance, the constant emotional and mental strain, begin to take their toll. You find yourself more tired, less quick, and more prone to the occasional misstep. This physical decline, though gradual, is a stark reminder of your mortality and the fleeting nature of your profession. The jokes that once elicited roaring laughter now sometimes garner only polite chuckles, or worse, a blank stare. You try to adapt, to find new material, to reinvent your persona, but the well of inspiration feels shallower than it once was. The pressure to constantly innovate, to remain relevant in a world that thrives on novelty, becomes an unbearable weight. You feel like a performer trapped in a loop, endlessly repeating variations of the same act, hoping someone will still find it amusing. You also observe the changing tastes of the court itself. What was once considered cutting-edge humor might now be deemed old-fashioned or even offensive. The political climate shifts, and jokes that were once safe become dangerously charged. You have to be more cautious, more guarded, which inevitably stifles your creativity. The spontaneous brilliance that characterized your early years is slowly replaced by a more calculated, careful approach, designed more for survival than for genuine amusement. The nobles, who once sought you out for a quick laugh or a whispered confidence, now largely ignore you. Their attention shifts to the rising stars, to those whose favor is still climbing. You become a fixture, a piece of the furniture, rather than a dynamic presence. You overhear whispered conversations about your age, your tired jokes, or the decline in your once sharp wit. These words, though not meant for your ears, sting with the brutal truth of your diminishing value. This decline leads to a deepening sense of despair. Your identity has been so intertwined with your role as the jester that, as the role diminishes, so too does your sense of self-worth. You are no longer the vibrant source of laughter, the confidant of kings, You are merely an aging entertainer, living on borrowed time. The golden cage. Once a symbol of privilege, now feels more like a prison. Its bars pressing in on you. One commonality among historical jesters, though rarely fully documented, is this period of professional decline. Unlike nobles who could pass on their titles, or merchants who could build legacies, a jester's legacy was largely ephemeral, tied directly to their performance. When that performance waned, so did their relevance. You are a living testament to this hard truth. The laughter you generated was never truly yours to keep. It was leased, conditional on your continued ability to produce it. You might find your duties becoming less prominent. Perhaps you are no longer called to the grand feasts as often. Or your performances are relegated to smaller, less important gatherings. The monarch might still tolerate your presence, a nostalgic nod to past amusement, but the genuine delight is gone. You become a shadow of your former self, still present, but no longer truly shining. This marginalization is perhaps the cruelest blow, a slow, quiet fade into irrelevance. The fear of dismissal, which was always a distant hum, now becomes a loud, insistent drumbeat. Every new face at court, every particularly successful performance by another entertainer, fills you with dread. You are acutely aware that your position is not guaranteed, and that the monarch, ever pragmatic, will eventually replace a waning asset with a fresh one. You prepare yourself for the inevitable, but the anticipation is a torment in itself. You might try to pivot your skills, perhaps attempting to become a storyteller or a musician, hoping to find a new niche in the court. But your reputation as the Jester is firmly established, and it's hard to shake off the perception of being merely a clown. You are typecast, trapped by the very role that once elevated you. This struggle for reinvention, for finding a new purpose in a world that only sees you in one way, is a source of profound frustration. Your relationship with the monarch changes. The intimacy, born of your truth-telling, slowly erodes as your perceived value diminishes. They no longer seek your counsel, no longer confide their anxieties. You become merely a presence, a reminder of their past amusement, but no longer a source of active engagement. The unique bond you once shared, however tenuous, dissolves into a polite, distant acknowledgement. It's like that crocodile dung sunscreen. You know, once it stops working, people just move on to the next thing, no matter how effective it once was. This period of decline forces you to confront the harsh reality of your existence. You have lived a life of constant performance, of superficial connection, of perpetual anxiety. And now, as the curtain slowly begins to fall, you are left with the emptiness of a life lived for others' amusement. The despair is not dramatic or sudden. It's a quiet, insidious creep, like a slow poison that gradually saps your spirit. You are watching your own professional death, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. The creeping despair of decline eventually forces a confrontation with the inevitable your unsung exit from the spotlight. Whether by your own weary choice or by the monarch's decree, the time comes when you must leave the court, facing an uncertain future beyond the castle walls. A future where your bells will jingle for no king, and your wit will amuse no noble. Perhaps it's a quiet decision on your part. You've grown tired of the endless performance, the constant pressure, the gnawing loneliness. The golden cage, once a symbol of opportunity, now feels suffocating. You crave a simpler existence, a life where your worth isn't measured by how many laughs you can extract from a fickle audience. You've saved a meager sum, perhaps squirreled away a few coins from generous nobles over the years, enough to sustain you for a short while outside the court's charity. You approach the monarch with a carefully worded request, framing it as a desire for a peaceful retirement, a graceful bowing out before your skills truly diminish. The monarch, perhaps with a pang of sentimentality for past amusements, grants your request, offering a small pension or a piece of land in a remote corner of the kingdom. This is the best-case scenario, a rare privilege for a jester. More often, The exit is less voluntary. As your wit dulls and your energy wanes, the monarch's patience wears thin. They might hire a younger, more energetic jester, one whose fresh jokes and acrobatic feats eclipse your own. You see the writing on the wall, your replacement is already here, performing the role you once held with such vigor. The monarch might then call you to their presence, not for a performance, but for a dismissal. The words are polite, perhaps even regretful, but firm. You are no longer needed. You are given a small severance, a final nod of acknowledgement, and then you are sent away. No longer a court fixture, no longer a source of amusement. This departure, whether chosen or imposed, is a stark plunge from the height of privilege to the quiet anonymity of everyday life. You leave behind the grand halls, the bustling courtiers, the rich food, and the intricate web of power that defined your existence for so long. The silence outside the castle walls is deafening after years of constant chatter, music, and laughter. You are no longer surrounded by servants, no longer the center of attention, no longer privy to the kingdom's secrets. You are just another person, indistinguishable from the common folk you once joked about. The transition is jarring. You might find yourself in a small village, far from the capital, trying to reacquaint yourself with the rhythms of a life you left behind. The villagers, if they know of your past, might regard you with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. You are the former jester, a strange anomaly, a ghost of a more glamorous life. Your stories of courtly intrigue and royal eccentricities, once your bread and butter, now find little audience. They are too far removed from the daily concerns of sowing crops and raising families. You might try to ply your old trade, performing for coins in village squares or at local taverns. But the material that worked in the sophisticated court feels out of place here. Too subtle, too refined. The broad humor, the simpler jests, the less demanding audiences, it's a different kind of performance. And you're out of practice. The bells on your motley feel heavy, perhaps even a little ridiculous, without the grand backdrop of the court. You realize that your unique talent was cultivated for a very specific environment, and outside of it, it loses its sparkle. The loneliness you felt within the court intensifies in your new solitude. You are truly alone now, without even the performative connections that once defined your days. The constant pressure to be on is gone, but it's replaced by the emptiness of having no one to be on for. You miss the mental challenge, the quick wit required to navigate royal whims. You miss the brief moments of genuine amusement you brought to others, even if those moments were fleeting. There's a sense of loss, a quiet grief for the life you once had. However precarious, you were important, in your own unique way. You had a voice, however veiled. You were a part of something grander than yourself. Now, you are just an echo, a memory fading with each passing day. This emotional toll of professional irrelevance is often overlooked in discussions of medieval life. But it is a very real suffering. You've gone from the center of attention to the periphery, and the adjustment is brutal. Historians often struggle to trace the fates of jesters after they left court, precisely because their lives became unsung. They rarely left behind diaries or chronicles. Their existence was dependent on their direct relationship with the monarch, and once that dissolved, they often disappeared from the historical record. You embody this historical obscurity. Your story, once interwoven with the grand narrative of the kingdom, now becomes a tiny forgotten thread. You might find small moments of peace in your new life, the quiet of the countryside, the simple rhythms of nature, the freedom from constant scrutiny. You might rediscover forgotten hobbies, or simply enjoy the luxury of choosing your own schedule. But even these small comforts are tinged with regret, with the knowledge of what you once were. You are an expatriate from a world you can never truly return to. Ultimately, your exit is not a glorious farewell, but a quiet fading. You are no longer the source of royal laughter, no longer the confidant of kings. You are just a person, carrying the weight of a life lived in the shadow of power. A life that, despite its unique privileges, was ultimately marked by profound isolation and relentless performance. You are free, yes, but free to be forgotten. And as you watch the last rays of sunlight fade over the distant hills, you realize that the performance, at least for the court, is truly over. The silence after your departure from court is not just an absence of sound. It's an overwhelming void where laughter once resonated, where whispers of power once buzzed. You are no longer the jester, the focal point of amusement, the confidant of kings. You are merely a person, and as the final curtain falls on your performance, you begin to contemplate the most profound and unsettling truth, the echoes of a forgotten fool's legacy. You look back at your life, a strange tapestry woven with threads of vibrant motley and somber solitude. You spent years crafting jokes, observing human folly, navigating the treacherous currents of court politics. You saw things, heard things, and spoke things that no other person dared. You were a unique bridge between the powerful and the powerless, a mirror reflecting the absurdities and cruelties of the age. Yet, what remains of that, in the grand sweep of history, the official chronicles will record the reigns of monarchs, the triumphs of generals, the decrees of ministers. Your name, if mentioned at all, will likely be a fleeting footnote, a passing reference to the king's fool. Your cleverest riddles will be lost to time, your most insightful satires forgotten. The laughter you generated, though profound in the moment, was ephemeral, carried away on the wind like smoke. Unlike a victorious general or a wise minister, you leave no tangible monuments, no lasting edicts, no inherited lands. Your legacy is an echo, fading with each passing generation. You might ponder the true impact of your existence. Did your veiled truths ever truly sway a monarch's decision? Or were they merely a momentary distraction? Did your humor lighten the crushing burden of kingship? Or simply offer a brief respite before the anxieties returned? Did you genuinely make the lives of those around you better, even for a fleeting moment? Or were you merely a tool, a necessary diversion in the machinery of power? The answers remain elusive, lost in the mists of time and the subjective nature of memory. You consider the other jesters who came before you, and those who will follow. Their names, too, are largely forgotten, their acts dissolved into the ether. This realization brings a peculiar mix of melancholy and acceptance. You were part of a long, uncelebrated lineage, a continuous line of fools who served a vital, yet ultimately unacknowledged, purpose. You were the conscience of the court, the pressure valve for its absurdities, but never truly its architect. The historical truth, often unromanticized, is that jesters seldom carved out a lasting place in official history. They existed in the shadows of power, their brilliance confined to the fleeting moments of performance. This lack of a formal legacy, this quiet disappearance from the annals of time, is a core part of the jester's reality. You are now living that reality, an unsung hero of the court's peculiar drama. You may find yourself sharing old court stories with a lone listener, perhaps a curious child, or a sympathetic tavern keeper. The tales, once sharp and politically charged, now become mere anecdotes, charming curiosities from a bygone era. The intricate nuances of court intrigue are lost on your new audience, who simply see them as quaint tales of kings and queens. Your unique knowledge, once so valuable, now feels like a burden, a secret language spoken in a world that no longer understands it. This experience forces you to confront the very nature of memory and remembrance, what truly lasts. Not the ephemeral jests, but the grand narratives, the victories and defeats that shape kingdoms. Your contribution, though deeply personal and impactful in its moment, dissolves into the vastness of the past. You were a momentary flicker of light, a burst of laughter in the darkness, but not a permanent star in the historical firmament. And yet, there is a quiet dignity in this forgotten legacy. You lived a life few others could imagine, navigating a world of immense danger with nothing but your wit and your courage. You spoke truth to power, even if veiled. In an age where such defiance was suicidal, you brought moments of levity and insight to a world often steeped in cruelty and rigid formality. Perhaps your greatest legacy is not in the grand pronouncements of history, but in the subtle, unspoken influence you had on the individuals you entertained. The tiny shifts in perspective, the moments of genuine, unburdened laughter you elicited. Perhaps your true legacy lies not in being remembered by history books, but in the echoes you left in the hearts and minds of those who witnessed your unique brilliance. The monarch who pondered your veiled advice, the courtier who learned discretion from your subtle jests, the servant who found a moment of joy in your performance. These are the true, unrecorded testaments to your existence. Your echoes are not in stone, but in the fleeting, yet powerful, moments of human connection and insight you fostered.